Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday this week with Mike Bowler. Hey, Mike. Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
So we're talking about change today. Of course, it's the change leadership episode. And we want to focus on, a whole process so that we kind of get an overview of what are the key steps in that particular process. And as you go through the story of that change process, highlight for us the tools, the tips, the tricks, and the techniques you learned back then that you still apply today.
Well, one of the biggest things that I lead with still is I lead with curiosity. I come in and I ask a lot of questions. I'm trying not to tell people what to do. And in fact, I'm very clear about that when I first arrive. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to give you more options so that you can make better decisions for yourself. So that's very clear. But then as we're digging into problems, I try to lead as much as possible with curiosity. Let me give you an example. I came in with one team. I was working with one of the developers, and I made a suggestion about something that they might want to do. And I said, what if we tried this thing? And I don't even remember what the thing was, but it doesn't matter. I said, what if we tried this thing? And the developer said to me, that would be a great idea, but my team lead wouldn't let us do that. Okay. So I went over to the team lead and I said, here's the thing we've been talking about. What if we tried something like this? And the team lead said to me, oh, that's a great idea, but the architect wouldn't let us do that. So I went and talked to the architect and I explained this is what we're doing and what if we tried something like this? And she said, that's a great idea, but this other group over here wouldn't let us do that. And I kept following this chain up. I went up 5 levels, and at every level, everybody said to me, oh, that's a great idea. We should absolutely do that, but this group over here wouldn't let us do that. 5 levels up I went. And so finally, I just went back to the developer and I said, here's the conversations I've had. I talked to your team lead, to your architect, to this group, to that group. I went all the way up, and everybody thought it was a great idea, and everybody thought that somebody else would stop it. So what do you think? Should we just try it? And we tried it, and it turned out to be great. It turned out to be something that was positive. Everybody assumed that they wouldn't be allowed to do it, but nobody was actually willing to go and try something. Now, I do need to caution you that there are some environments where it's not safe to try something like that. And in this is a case where I wasn't sure at this company. Now, at this company, it totally was safe, but I was still new at the engagement and I didn't know if it was safe at this point. So I wanted to try it. So I went all the way up the hierarchy, all the way up, and nobody had a problem with it. Everybody thought it was a great idea. They just thought somebody else would have stopped it. So by leading with curiosity and asking these questions, I was able to get us to a better place. And this is sort of a typical thing. We see this in a lot of places. I'll give you another example. I came in to work with the development team, and they said I wanted to introduce them some testing techniques, some TDD and just exploratory testing and other things. And I was focusing on how this was a quality issue. And they said, let us just stop you right there. We have perfect code. And I was a little bit taken aback. I thought, okay, well, you're pretty cocky. You think you've got perfect code here. I said, tell me more about that. They said, it's not that we write perfect code right from the beginning, but our quality process is so good that we never have a bug in production. I thought, that is wonderful. I said, would it be okay if I showed you these techniques anyway? And if you decide they're not useful to you, then you don't have to use them. And that was great. So I went through and I showed them all of these different techniques. And within 2 hours, we'd found about half a dozen bugs in their production code. So by asking questions and saying, would it be okay if, and what if we tried this, and can I show you something else? We got them to consider that there actually were a whole bunch of things wrong with their code that they'd not previously considered bugs.
Yeah. So coming back to the first story, one of the cool things about that is that there's a lot of mythology in organizations. And the bigger they are, the more mythology there is. And mythology is things we believe without evidence, right? Like, yes. It just is like that. Why it is, I don't know. It just is like that. That's probably a way in which those show up. And I really like that approach of, okay, well, let's assume that's true. And validate it, right? Let's just ask that person that you said wouldn't allow us to. And, if they say no, that's fine. We're not going to go against them, but we're going to validate. And you did that for a few times. And of course, after a while, you realize actually no one really wanted to have any influence in that. It was just that mythology taking over, right?
Yes, yes.
And what I like about that story is how the strategy you used, you called leading with curiosity. The strategy that you used allowed you to figure out where does this mythology go, because it is possible that there would be such a person in that chain that would say, yeah, that's right, you're not allowed to do it. And some things are not allowed in some companies, some for good reasons, other for bad reasons. It doesn't matter. But you led with curiosity, i.e. you validated the assumptions, right?
Yes, and honestly, I was expecting somebody to say no at some point. I was expecting that I would have to start asking them questions about, well, why is it a no? Help me understand what constraint is in the environment that would make this untenable. And I was somewhat surprised that nobody had any objection at all. It was just they always thought that somebody else would.
And then in the second story, what I was surprised by, because the first story is about leading with curiosity. And in the second story, it was more like the other way around. Kind of you triggered their curiosity.
Yes.
Right? And it wasn't about you, okay, let's find out. No, it was about you, okay, I understand. I accept what you're telling me. I'm not disputing that. But what if we just try it anyway, right? Just in case. And if you don't like it, you can leave it behind. And what we do with that approach is more like triggering their curiosity, because they look at you and say, okay, this experienced person says that this could be useful. Why not? I mean, what do we got to lose? We don't need to use it in the future, right?
And again, I had no preconceptions. When they said to me, we have no bugs in production, I believed them.
Yeah, and that is the part about leading with curiosity. It's like you start from the perspective of that's true, and let's explore that further.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's really a key aspect in this, let's call it a leadership behavior, because it is a leadership behavior to lead with curiosity, is that accepting that it might just be true. We don't need to dispute it. We can just move on and be curious about what happens next, right?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent story. Thank you for sharing that, Mike.
Oh, you're welcome.
Leading change is one of the core skills we must acquire, but it is only one of the steps towards our success as Scrum Masters. Tomorrow, on Success Thursday, we will talk about how to define success for the Scrum Master role. We'll cover tips on how to measure your way to that position, and most importantly, how to develop that focus on continuous improvement that is as important for Scrum Masters as it is for teams. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.